Right then, let's go.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the 2-on-1 Powerchair Football podcast, now proudly powered by MK Battery for the 24-25 season. MK Battery has been a long-standing supporter of Powerchair Football, working closely with the WFA to provide the essential batteries that power our sport. Their dedication goes beyond just equipment. They've played a pivotal role in the development of Powerchair Football, helping to fuel its growth and success across all levels. My name is Ryan Sipple, and alongside Alex Dowding today, we will be recapping all of the action from an incredible weekend in the 24-25 Optegra Championship. The official sponsor of the National League, Optegra are a leading provider of eye healthcare, specialising in vision correction, cataract surgery and other advanced eye treatments. And I fear, Alex, this could be a long episode because what a sensational weekend of football we've had. I'm running out of superlatives to describe our National League.
What a weekend indeed, and we've got quite a lot that happened off the pitch as well. It was also lots to talk about and great news there. But like you say, the football has been outstanding so far this season and continues to do so. And it's thrown up some interesting results and a very exciting title race.
Absolutely. It had everything: drama, action, and even football royalty, which we'll come on to in a few moments. We said during our recap of Game Week 1 that it was the best opening weekend to a championship season we've ever had. Game Week 2 just somehow seemed to surpass it completely in terms of drama, in terms of quality, in terms of competitiveness. So what a season we are having. Before we start, I once again want to just say a really quick thank you to my team of commentators, 16 in total. Every single fixture across Game Week 2 had live match commentary, which is a first. Having players travel to Nottingham specifically to support our efforts hopefully just shows how dedicated people are to bringing our National League to life. So without going through the full list, I just want to say a special thank you to Rosie Hodgson, Chris Gordon, Dylan Palmer, Greg Baxter and Owen Swift, who came solely to commentate. And as always, if you're interested in supporting our commentary efforts, please reach out to me via email or social media. Alex and I put a lot of planning into commentary now, so if you want to be factored in either to the upcoming Premiership weekend on December 14th and 15th, or even the next Championship weekend in February, please let me know as soon as possible. Two more things before we get into our recap of the Championship. Firstly, a quick shout out to Paul Yates, who will become the 12th recipient of the prestigious Steve Baxter Memorial Coin, having reached the incredible landmark of 100 National League games in the centre. And on the topic of match officials, I just want to say that the level of officiating in the National League as a whole has been exceptional. Jeff Lewis, as head of referees for the WFA, is doing an incredible job organising and upskilling officials, and I feel it really does play a significant role in the football we're seeing. Regular listeners will know that we often reference Jeff the Ref for the incredible stats and sound bites he provides our listeners, but I just wanted to quickly highlight the official role he plays within English Powerchair Football. And lastly, anyone that was present will know that Game Week 2 of the Championship was memorable for many reasons, both on and off the court. If not, you would have seen on social media, we were thrilled to welcome some very special guests, Carol and Stuart Pearce. Firstly, a huge thank you to Carol, who recently published the third book in her series about Joe Jr., the latest instalment being Joe Jr. and the Wheels of Steel, which tells the inspiring story of a young boy who discovers a new way of playing the sport he loves and learns that football truly is for everyone. It's a fantastic read, that really does capture the inclusive spirit of Powerchair Football. That can be found on Amazon. So if you want a gift to provide someone for Christmas, look no further than Joe Jr. and the Wheels of Steel.
Got a couple on order myself for some young readers for Christmas.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Very nice. I believe it's only $8.99, the paperback copy on Amazon. We put a lot of details over our social media today, so if you want to find it, you can go via our social media where we have signposted to the link on Amazon. But as I was about to get onto, the excitement didn't stop there, because Carol brought along her husband, who happens to be the legendary Stuart Pearce. For those who might not know Stuart, also known as Psycho, is an England football icon with over 700 career appearances and 78 England caps to his name. He's a figure who commands respect across the football world. Alex, I was on commentary. I was rooted to the surface of the Lee Westwood Sports Centre for the majority of Sunday. So I didn't necessarily experience the commotion and excitement as I'm sure you did. Give me your thoughts. How was it?
I've got to say, it was one of my favourite days at National League. I was quite fortunate in that he kind of, both him and Carol ended up near the streaming desk up top, and were there for about an hour with us, asking lots of questions. A few jokes and a bit of fun as well, but lots of interest in the game itself, from the personalities and the players through to crikey, the list of things we talked about. They were genuinely interested in the sport. We talked tyre pressure, floor surfaces, tactics. There was Stuart noticed a bit of potential time wasting and said, "Is that deliberate?" Yes, it was. Lots of stuff that he recognised from the game itself, and absolutely loved it, and seemed to be genuinely interested in the sport itself and the people. And lots of people walking past and asking for photos and selfies. And both him and Carol were absolutely wonderful with their time and their energy. Nothing was too much trouble. Nothing was too big an ask. I've seen somebody had already written on social media, and I've done the same, that you should never meet your heroes, but if that hero happens to be Stuart Pearce, go for it, because absolute gentleman, very humble, but very relaxed and likeable as well, all at the same time. I got to ask him about a couple of my favourite Stuart Pearce stories, including when he tried to run off his broken leg. And I asked him about it, because I said, "Didn't you try to do that twice?" was what I believed. And he said, "No, the second time I knew it was broken, so I just walked back to the dressing room." So broke a leg, tried to run it off. Second time, I know it's broken now, so I won't do anything stupid. I'll just walk back to the dressing room. Very hard player and really physically strong and tough, and mentally tough as well. But because of that, he recognised the efforts and the how hard it is to get on the pitch for some of our players as well. So he was a little bit in awe of the efforts and how people went about. Asked about a couple of bits about chairs, and noticed that there were ventilators on the back of a couple, and was blown away that the efforts of players, PAs, parents, supporters, to help get people onto a pitch to play Powerchair football, which sometimes we all take for granted a little bit within the sport, and it's nice that someone came in and noticed that. And as well, Carol was equally interested. Lots and lots of questions around the sport and the competitiveness, the personalities of the players. All of that stuff was of interest to them, and they full of questions. And I feel like we probably bombarded them with possibly too much, but they said no, they loved it, and they really enjoyed it. And what a fantastic Sunday. Stuart did get down on the pitches as well, and had plenty of photos with teams and anyone that was interested and wanted. Just a wonderful experience to have him there, and didn't disappoint at all. Everything he wanted and more.
Yeah, anyone that knows Stuart Pearce knows that he's synonymous with Nottingham Forest. And when he turned up, I was sitting down on the court preparing for commentary, which happened to be Nottingham Forest versus Manchester United. And it was during the pre-match team talk that the Nottingham Forest coaches and players acknowledged Stuart's presence on the balcony. And you could just see what it meant to them. His support and energy just seemed to light a fire within the player. And my God, did it show on the court. They went on to secure a historic win, which we'll get onto in more detail later. But just having a club legend like Stuart Pearce there undoubtedly made the difference. It was surreal. I think that's the only word to really describe it. He and Carol had time for anyone that wanted to talk, that wanted a picture, and you've probably seen it flooded across social media. So hopefully that's the first of many appearances within WFA competitions going forward. So anyway, let's get into the recap. As regular listeners will know, as Alex and I typically do these episodes, we have the results and league tables displayed alongside us, and we'll go through each team as they sit from first through to 12th, talk about how they've fared, highlight particular results, performances or moments that we feel were significant, and maybe cast our thoughts ahead to the season as a whole. And for that, it brings me on to new league leaders, GBG Knights. So, Alex, give me your thoughts on GBG Knights.
I thought they looked very well organised. I think Kai Shah, who's doing the coaching, has got them playing some lovely football. They're pragmatic. They don't try and play football the right way all the time if it's not suited. So occasionally they'll make it horrible. They'll lock it up. They'll do what they need to do. But they look very tidy, score some good goals, and they've got a nice balance in the team. From what I can see, Oscar Smedley did very well. I don't know how many assists he's got now, but I think he must be up there.
I can confirm that Oscar Smedley's on 14 assists, and it's worth reminding that this is only his second ever National League weekend, fairly unprecedented, which is also double that of any other player. So second and third happened to also be GBG Knights players in George Holloway and Kai Shah on 7 each.
I was on a couple of the GBG Knights games in terms of entering our match data as it goes along for the live graphics in the app. And I remember putting in Oscar Smedley as a sister quite a few times. Definitely twice for Reece Mallet goals as well. So they've got a nice little link up there with Reece Mallet joining GBG Knights as well. So there's lots of positive things. Reece out on the wing, probably not a position he's played loads in his career, but he looked comfortable out on the left wing for GBG Knights. Looks like he's slotting in and learning their style of play and what they're trying to do quite nicely as well, and popping up with a couple of goals. I don't know how many he got, whether it was 2 or more. It was definitely 2, but I don't know if he got any more than that. So yeah, he's been a good little addition, a good experienced player. So GBG Knights should be looking at a title challenge, serious one.
Yeah, I agree completely. It was an incredible weekend. They not only maintained momentum from an almost faultless game week 1, but they somehow managed to build upon it. 13 points from a possible 15, 17 goals scored, just 1 conceded. They've now amassed an incredible 38 goals across their 9 games, giving them an average of over 4 goals per game, which is double that of any other team in the division. It also happens to be the combined goal scored total of Muscle Warriors, Manchester United and Leeds Dynamos, who are in 2nd, 3rd and 4th respectively. So hopefully that just builds the picture how prolific they are in front of goal. You've already mentioned the style of play, and when they do pick up that 4-out expansive football, they are a pleasure to watch, a pleasure to commentate on. And they had a tough weekend to contest, but in every one, maybe with the slight exception of Teesside still, they were dominant, and it was only ever going to go one way. And I say potentially with the exception of Teesside still, it was their first fixture, and it's always known as a bogey fixture, the first fixture of a weekend, sorry. They just struggled to get out of second gear, but they remained resolute, and a very late Jack Ewins penalty saw them take a point. And on the topic of Jack Ewins, I thought he was sensational. The best I've ever seen him within the National League, playing with confidence, playing with a smile on his face, having moved from AFC Bournemouth Warriors. He's now established himself as one of the first names on the team sheet, and this is a squad filled to the brim with talent. He's versatile, and I think he featured within every position at some point across the weekend. He was voted to be part of the team of the weekend, and Kai Shah secured coach of the weekend. So they are picking up some really good pace, and as you've already said, we can safely consider GBG Knights will most likely secure automatic promotion, if not be the ultimate title favourites.
Yeah, Jack's a bright lad, and I think the experience and technique is catching up with his intellect in terms of being on the pitch. So all those three things coming together now to make quite a formidable player for GBG.
Yeah, I agree completely. So congratulations to them. They will be top of the table till at least February when game week 3 commences. So next in the table, we have Muscle Warriors. 3 wins and 3 1-0 wins and a 1-1 draw sees them maintain their position towards the summit of the Optegra Championship stand-ins. They're locked on the same points as GBG Knights, but as already referenced, an inferior goal difference. Alex, Muscle Warriors, did you get a chance to watch them much?
I saw bits and pieces. I didn't actually, wasn't on the data or the graphics or any specific game, but I I had a lighter load this weekend, so I didn't actually have to do every game. Hence why I got a bit of time to talk to the Pierces, but also I got to watch a bit of football on both pitches without having to worry about concentrating on one specific one. So I saw a bit of Muscles efforts. They're a solid looking side. They've got some very competent players that are able to control games and work out wins and work their way around stuff. Their enthusiastic manager or coach in Al Murray is a positive for them as well. He gets them going and gets them moving. So they play with a bit of passion. Can they become more prolific? I think there's probably space for them to do so in their team and their general play. But at the moment, it's points that are counting, and that's where they're at. But they've got a little bit of chasing to do if it does come down to goal difference at the end of the season with GBG Knights. So I think that's where they need to focus their efforts in training, is increasing their goal count. Yeah,
they started the weekend with 2 1-0 victories over West Bromwich Albion, Dudley and Hull and East Yorkshire, both of which the single goal scorer is Jacob Vickers, who is just absolutely blowing the opposition away. I don't know where this newfound confidence has come from, but it's almost as if Muscle Warriors have signed a Premiership quality player. He now has 10 goals to his name in 24-25, which I believe, remarkably, is exactly half the amount of his entire career goal total. So he scored the same number of goals in the 2024-25 season, 2 weekends of which we've played, than the last 3 or 4 seasons combined. So really great stuff. You mentioned about the kind of the goal difference. 5 of Muscle Warriors' 9 games have seen them score just a single goal. We know how defensive they are. They've only conceded 1 goal. That was at the hands of Sale United across game week 2. So it's about can they look to be more prolific? Tactically, it's very much a 1 and 3 approach to games. And when I say that, they're very conservative in their utilisation of Hannah Hindley, being the designated goalkeeper. She will very rarely leave the confines of her box, which probably explains that effectiveness in defence. I'd almost challenge Hannah and the team to be a bit braver and contribute in attack, because she has the technical ability to do so. And if she does, there's no telling what the team can do. But saying that, what they're currently doing is working incredibly effectively. So I suppose it's one of those, if it isn't broke, don't fix it dilemmas.
Yeah, I mean, points total wise, they're already 10 points clear of third place.
Yes.
So they're significantly advantaged in terms of points on the table. So if they were to continue doing what they're doing in terms of the win rate, they'll comfortably stay in second. But if the goals, average goals per game scored and conceded stay the same, then equally they're going to stay quite far behind GBG Knights on the goals difference side of stuff.
Yes.
So it really is the approach to the season. In the context of the season, they need more points than GBG Knights probably if they're going to win the title. They're not going to necessarily do it on goal difference. So that is looking like the picture for the title race at the moment. Is two teams. One is diligently going about acquiring their points. One is trying to go and score as many goals as they can to get their points. So it will be a very interesting evolution of the title race and how those two teams' approach to the season plays out through the rest of the weekends we have.
Yeah, I think the reason I call for them to adopt more of a 4-out approach is twofold. Firstly, I think Hannah Hindley is more than capable of performing that sweeper keeper role. And secondly, this is one of our only Jeff the Ref stats of the episode. Hannah is the only player in the National League's history to register a goal for 5 different clubs. And that's a statistic that doesn't even factor in Muscle Warriors, who she's yet to score for. So a goal for her current side would see her extend that record to 6 different clubs. Can you give me a guess as to the 5 clubs she's scored a goal for?
Oh, crikey. There's a question. Right, so let's go for Leeds.
Which Leeds?
Is there 2 Leeds sides on there?
There is 2 Leeds sides on there.
Well, let's go for Chariots and Dynamos.
2 ticks.
That's not a bad start from me. Manchester United.
Absolutely.
Have I Hull?
Nope.
No, she hasn't moved to Hull. This has got me possibly stumped. I'm pretty chuffed I managed to remember 3 of her clubs.
No, a good effort. Sale United and Telford PFC, the other 2 comprising the 5. So
see, Telford played in orange, which is why I went with Hull.
Yeah,
that's what my memory was triggering. That's my excuse anyway.
What we need is if Muscle Warriors are awarded a penalty in the following games across the 24-25 season, stick Hannah Hindley on it, because she's already a record breaker. You can safeguard that even more so. So yeah, congratulations to her. And then just the last point on Muscle Warriors, congratulations to Rikin Shah, present in the team of the weekend for the 2nd time this season. So important to the way they play. And this is a team we've referenced Jacob Vickers as one point as being such a crucial cog in the Muscle Warriors machine. Rikin Shah is likewise. So you've said that they're going to have to probably surpass GBG Knights in terms of points if they want that title. But the 2 are yet to meet. So there's 2 meetings in game weeks 3 and 5, which will be very closely contested and no doubt, based on current form and momentum, will dictate the title.
So we want a draw in game week 3 then, don't we, really? Is what we're after.
As long as they're able to maintain momentum. Yeah.
So we've got ourselves a nice, exciting finish in game week 5. So that's our preference, I'd imagine. Probably not theirs. I'm sure each of them would like to be clear on points by the time they get to game week 5. But for those of us that like the exciting stories and battles that take place throughout the season, that's what I would like, if you're listening. Next up in the table, Manchester United, who open the weekend with their part in the Manchester Derby.
Historic.
Is this the first ever Manchester derby we've had in Powerchair Football?
I think it certainly is within the National League. Whether or not they've faced one another in the various regional leagues they contest, I don't know. But either way, historic. And what was even nicer is they were both adorning the kits of their running game professionals. So it was some sight.
It was probably quite a nerve-wracking event for some of them as well. And without naming names, there are, of course, some players that support one of the clubs but play for the other. Yes. So I imagine that was an interesting dilemma for them as they were approached. I'm sure they all wanted to win the game first and foremost. But equally, there's playing against your club's badge must be quite a thing to do.
Yeah, we'll get on to Manchester City in more detail later in the episode. But we previewed the fact that this fixture was coming up in our recap of Gameweek 1 of the Championship. And we both said that Manchester United were by and far significant favourites, but that is just not how it played out. It took a Sam Taylor goal after 29 minutes to break the stubborn defence of Manchester City, eventually securing the win. And in doing so, Sam Taylor now, his goals alone have secured Manchester United 7 of their 15 points.
He certainly pops up a few times with some important goals when I've been watching their games, and celebrates in style when he does so. He's pretty chuffed to get on the scoreboard when he does. You can see how much it means to him to be involved. So I think it was a game with lots riding on it emotionally for all the players, and overall, you've got to say very well done to Manchester City, but equally well done for Manchester United for being professional enough to get that win right at the end, or near the end.
Yeah, and it was in that fixture versus City that United provided a National League debut to Anne-Marie Robertson, who becomes the first female Scottish player to compete in the National League's history. She's also the first female Scottish player to register a goal in the National League's history. And whilst I don't want to highlight her age, I will say that she is the oldest player competing in our National League, both across the Premiership and the Championship. So I essentially want to use her as a message to anyone out there that's interested in playing the sport, irrelevant of age, irrelevant of gender, irrelevant of experience. Powerchair Football completely levels the playing field for those with a disability and provides life-changing experiences. And the eruption of the Lee Westwood Sports Centre when she scored against Nottingham Forest on Sunday was just amazing. It really was amazing.
So she's one of 2 Scottish players Manchester United have now. Of course, they've got Kieran Burns as well. And certainly there was a lot of buzz from the Scottish contingent that had come down as part of the Manchester United team, and how much they were enjoying the weekend, enjoying the football, and specifically said it was how well organised the National League was, and as a player experiencing that for the first time, they really enjoyed it. So that was nice nice bit of feedback as well.
Yeah, so that was a really significant moment for them. Despite that, the most prominent moment for me across Game Week 2, I was commentating with Dean Williams for Manchester United's Saturday afternoon fixture versus Teesside Steel. It was one-way traffic. Teesside, whilst only being a goal up, dominated possession, frustrated Manchester United. Around 30 minutes in, when Teesside essentially missed an open goal to go 2-0 up and put the game to bed. It prompted Pete Taylor, who is fast becoming my favourite manager in the division, to make a decision to bring Josh Slack out of goal in place of Shannon Smith. And within about 2 minutes, Josh provided the most sensational assist over to Sam Taylor at the back post to equalise. I said it on commentary. Our match balls are 33 centimetres in diameter. It must have been a 34 centimetre gap that Josh Slack had to squeeze the ball through to Sam Taylor at the back post. But they've just got this kind of title of versatility, their incredible ability to mix things up, even with the limited squad. And they rely on tactical switch-ups to change games as opposed to calling on players off the bench. They have one of the thinner squads in the division. Really good, a really important factor that I think needs noting. They'll be disappointed on Sunday that they failed to defeat Nottingham Forest, but as mentioned at the start, the presence of Stuart Pearce just weirdly transformed Forest into a team of confidence and togetherness, and I honestly don't think anyone would have beat Forest under those circumstances.
Well, just to mention as well, all of these games are on YouTube, so if you go to the WFA's YouTube page, you can go to the live tab and scroll down and watch any of these games. So any of these spectacular assists or goals that we're talking about and historic moments with for Anne-Marie, they're all available to watch on YouTube if you want to.
They absolutely are. So next in the table, in fourth, we have Leeds Dynamos. Of their 8 games, they have won half, they have drawn 1, and they have lost 3, sitting on 13 points. Alex, give me your thoughts on Leeds Dynamos.
Interesting side again. They're coached by Lewis Harris, Premiership player in the Leeds Chariots team, and been in and around the England squad a couple of times and in the development squad as well. So a player that's experienced some different coaches at different levels and has got his own ideas as well. So it's good to see that showing in the Leeds Dynamo squad and their way of playing and what they're looking to achieve. So I think it's a good weekend overall. I think they were disappointed with a couple of bits and a couple of results for them, but overall I think what they're looking for is their style of play, the standard of play, and how they're going about their business, and it's all moving in the right direction and looking promising for them.
Yeah, I think it's a team that many tipped to compete towards the top of the division. They did well in Gameweek 2, 7 points across the weekend sees them jump up to 4th in the standings. And I think with Muscle Warriors and GBG Knights already having a 10-point cushion over 3rd, it's almost inevitable that Leeds, as well as Manchester United and the teams in that general area, will be focusing a lot of their efforts on that 3rd place playoff position. Whilst I don't like to say that the division's already done after Game Week 2, 10-point cushion already is pretty remarkable. Their single defeat came at the hands of Muscle Warriors, who we know are so good. And other defeats in the division against GBG Knights and Teesside still show that they only really lose to the top teams.
And that defeat to Muscle was one of the 1-0s that Muscle have delivered. So as well, it was a close game. It wasn't that they got run over and lost heavily. So they're in and competing for sure.
Yeah, no team has managed to score more than a single goal against them. So if they can start to add goals to their name, beyond that 8-1 victory over AFC Bournemouth Warriors in Game Week 1, they're just struggling for attacking output. But they've added Benjamin Robinson to the squad. His addition will surely be a huge boost. He was joint top goal scorer for the Dynamos in 22-23 alongside Bobby Allen. So if he can start to produce that sort of output in Game Week 3 onwards, they could pick up some real momentum. Jack Humphreys, again, incredible. Like Jacob Vickers, it's almost as if the team have registered a new signing, because he has this newfound confidence playing in the middle, some of the best short and long range distribution in the division. It's now, for me, on the attacking wingers in Jack McNaughton, in Reece Stewart, in Benjamin Robinson to find their shooting boots, as they only registered 2 goals across their 4 games, which sadly just won't be good enough if they're trying to trouble the teams above them. But as you've already said, they're slowly starting to adopt Lewis Harris's ideas. So I think it's one of those we may have to cast our thoughts ahead to next season to see them in full force, because another few weekends of experience under their belts, I have no doubt that they could challenge for the title. But yeah, and like Muscle Warriors, maybe they could be a little bit braver in committing the goalkeeper up. Sebastian Copeland, sometimes reluctant to contribute to attack, but this new evolution and this new expectation of 4 out is still very alien to some teams. So I can understand the reluctance to do so.
It's also to say that there are multiple ways of playing 4 out and multiple variations of when and how to do it. 4 out is a catch-all, I suppose, for utilising your goalkeeper out on pitch at times. Obviously pioneered by the England side, but nevertheless there are variations within how England apply that in different games, and also within the other teams that utilise 4 out. There are differences in how that's applied. So, potentially it's a development area tactically for players' understanding. It certainly exposes more risks to you as a team if you don't understand the tactical dangers going on. And so you've really got to have a well-drilled side to understand all that. But Leeds are probably top of a little middle table section that's very interesting, given there's some differences in the number of games played, and consequently the points tallies all are potentially false, given the closeness of them as well. So just under Leeds, in 5th position, we have Teesside Steel. They're a point behind Leeds, and they've played a game extra. So they've played 9, Leeds have played 8. Leeds on 8 points, Teesside Steel on 12. So 12 points from their 9 games, 2 wins, 6 draws, and 1 loss. What do you make of Teesside Steel?
Yeah, up to 5th in the table. They are one of the toughest teams in the division to break down. They opened against GBG Knights. Few people would have given Teesside Steel a chance, really, to get anything from that, just based on the form of GBG Knights. But it took a 39th minute penalty to see something bypass Isaac Murray in the Teesside Steel goal. So they are a really stubborn team. They had some selection headaches with Charlie Connolly not being available. They only had 2 PF1s present in Oscar Mulgrew and Thomas Met. So Luke Heenan had to settle for less minutes than he would have liked to, but with Jamil Khan and Isaac Murray being so important to the way they play, you can understand why there was a reluctance to switch things up from Graham Mulgrew. Jamil Khan, another player present in the team of the weekend, shows he gets that acknowledgement from his peers. So it's a difficult one for Teesside Steel. They're consistently putting on really good performances, but like so many teams in and around them, they're just struggling to produce goals and find that attacking output. Their win over Nottingham Forest on Saturday probably needs credit, as all of Forest's other opponents really struggled to break them down. It was a Thomas Met brace and an Oscar Mulgrew with the other to see them secure the 3 points. So
I have to say, every now and again, a player catches my eye that I've not really picked out before as where they're at. And Isaac Murray this weekend on 3 or 4 occasions made me look and go, oh, okay, your game understanding and your brain is further along than I'd spotted before. Not that I should be spotting it, but he stood out a little bit within the games and the bits and pieces that I saw. He's a very intelligent player, makes some very, very good decisions in tough situations that all of a sudden diffuse difficult bits, make everything seem all right for Teesside. He's so important to them in terms of how he changes the shape of the game, changes the shape of play, or just calms down an issue and with no fuss, and lets them play without a panic when they could end up in some panicky situations. So just a shout out to Isaac Murray. I think he's a very, very intelligent and very important player for them.
I think you're absolutely right to do so. Only Muscle Warriors have managed to score more than a single goal against them this season, which hopefully speaks to that importance of Isaac Murray. He's one who likes to contribute in attack as well. So it's exciting times for Teesside still. My challenge for them is to ensure they remain resolute and defensively sound in the latter stages of games, as that's when we're seeing the opposition find success. And it's also starting to turn some of them draws into wins. They have 6 draws in their 9 games, which is double any other team in the division.
Yeah, that is quite a significant amount of draws, isn't it?
Yeah. So we'll see. I think there may be a possibility that Owen Swift joins them later in the season, and if that happens, I think that could be really the keys that unlock this exciting system and this overall collective team.
That would be an interesting move. Of course, we have transfer window in Powerchair Foot. We can't move at any time of the season, and Owen, very experienced and intelligent player, lots of Premier League experience, but is not getting as much pitch time in the Premier League now as he could have done previously, with Teesside having 2 or 3 new signings over the last year or so. So yeah, it could be an interesting move. Certainly one that I think Owen would relish in terms of getting a bit more playing time. But what he can add to that side could make it a very interesting proposition.
Absolutely, and I think it aids with classification as well. So who knows what can happen. Next in the standings, in 6th, we have Villa Rockets Lions, and I have to say, this is the Villa Lions team I was expecting in game week 1. An incredible weekend for Brad Bates' side, who were unbeaten across their 4 fixtures. They secured 10 points from a possible 12, wins over AFC Bournemouth Warriors, Manchester City and West Bromwich Albion Dudley see them jump 5 spots to 6th. Give me your thoughts on them, Mal.
Well, again, they've only played 8 games in total, and they're a point behind Teesside. So they've got a game in hand on Teesside, and so they're a genuine point behind Leeds Dynamos. So that 3, and then potentially as well bringing West Brom Dudley into them from underneath, and maybe you've got to argue bring Manchester United in from above that group, who are 10 points away from 2nd, but only 2 points away from 4th. Means that middle group of 3rd down to 7th is really quite a strong set of teams and a strong bit of competition going on there. So for Villa Rocket Lions to push themselves into a good position in that group for game week 2, I think is an excellent return on their efforts, and they'll look to try and get to the top of that group, I think, by the end of game weekend 3. So it's a slow start they're trying to compensate for, make up for, but they've done really well. Good football, attacking, and looked a bit more resilient in game week 1.
Yeah, I was able to only commentate on one of their games, which was against Manchester City, a game in which they went 1-0 down, but it has to be one of the most attacking performances I have ever seen. Villa probably had the ball in the City half for 95% of the game. They stayed calm, and they found an equaliser after 23 minutes, and then a winner very late on, when Naglis Montvillas squeezed the ball between the 2 City defenders. And that brings me on to Naglis Montvillas. Firstly, congratulations for marking his debut in the WFA National League, becoming the 3rd Republic of Ireland international to do so this season, behind Thomas and Sean Donoghue, who play for Norwich and Nottinghamshire respectively in the Premiership. This is a player who could easily find a suitor in the Premiership. He has bags of experience, having competed at multiple World Cups, European Championships, home nation tournaments, and he just seemed to be the key to unlock Brad Bates' style of football. 2 goals, 3 assists in his first 4 games in England is not bad at all. And should he produce that sort of output consistently across the remaining 3 weekends, Villa Lions will be right in that mix towards the summit. You've already referenced the table and how if they win their game in hand, they would surpass Teesside, Leeds Dynamos and Manchester United in the standings. I know Leeds Dynamos have played the same games as them. So out of nowhere, they seem to be right in that mix.
And really nice to have Naglis here as well. We obviously have been fortunate enough to get to know him in warmer climes and across the world at various tournaments before we came over to England. So Naglis is a lovely lad, and it's great to have him here. But like you say, that experience in international level and also being able to play the football that Villa are trying to do, he has a very important cog in their wheels for how they're going to operate. So yeah, really good to see, and certainly an interesting rest of the season for Villa Rocket Lions ahead, I'm sure. See how high can they climb.
Yeah, I just want to quickly spotlight Mason Hindley, who I referenced in Game Week 1 as I'd observed a real shift in his maturity and leadership, and that was a continuing trend in Game Week 2, so congratulations to him. It's Game Week 3 that will be the real test, and I'm sure they'll be gutted they have to wait 3 months for the next bout of Championship football, as they've just picked up some momentum. 5 fixture weekend against Sale United, Nottingham Forest, Hull and East Yorkshire, Leeds Dynamos and Muscle Warriors. And just reading out those opponents, it reminds me of something in our recap of Game Week 1 of the Premiership that stuck with me, that you said, Al, that seems to be right on the nose. The term on paper. I've listened to our podcast back a few times, and you challenge the use of the word on paper when we say opponents are more favourable on paper, when fixture lists are more favourable on paper. That term, certainly in the Championship, has been rendered utterly redundant. I'm reading out those opponents for Villa in Game Week 3. And whereas in seasons gone by, you would say on paper, most of those are winnable, with the division being so competitive and us witnessing some of the league's lower teams really challenging the teams towards the summit, there is no telling what will happen now. So I'm going to ask you to check and challenge me if you ever hear me use the term on paper from now on.
Oh, challenge accepted. I'll keep an eye out for that. More than happy to point out where you've gone wrong, Rye. I think the division's fantastic this year, and mainly because of that, it's very unpredictable. But that also means that if you're going to win it, and if you do win it, then you've really earned it. So it makes for much better football, a much better sport and entertainment, and a better spectacle all round. A bigger achievement for people that do well as well.
Absolutely. So before we jump into the remaining teams, I just want to take a moment to thank our incredible sponsors, MK Battery. Their support has been instrumental in making the 2-on-1 Powerchair Football podcast possible this season. They've been a cornerstone of the Powerchair Football community for many years, providing the high quality batteries that keep our chairs running smoothly, both in training and during competitive matches. Their commitment goes far beyond just supplying the batteries. They're deeply invested in the growth of the sport, partnering with the WFA to support players, to support clubs and competitions at every level. I know they're a real important part of our new development work across the country when we're developing provision in Leicestershire, in Rotherham, in Lincolnshire and Ipswich. They're playing their part within that, and that dedication ensures that all the players have access to reliable equipment, helping to continue to grow and inspire more people across the country. So a huge thank you to them. And as always, if you have any feedback, ideas for topics or questions for a future episode, we'd love to hear from you. And if you're interested in being a guest alongside myself and Alex, don't hesitate to get in touch, and you can drop us an email at 2on1@thewfa.org.uk, and all details are also on our website at www.thewfa.org.uk/podcast.
Any comments or questions as well, feel free to drop in. Don't have to just want to come onto the podcast. We're happy to field questions if you've got them.
Absolutely. So getting back into the Championship recap. Next in the standings, sitting in 7th, we have West Bromwich Albion Dudley. Give me your thoughts, Al.
I thought they look like a good side again in terms of their organisation and how they're setting themselves up. I thought they potentially weren't as dynamic, maybe is the phrase, as they were in game week 1. They looked a little bit lacklustre on occasions when I saw them, but I might be misrepresenting how they got on, as I only really saw a few moments in a few games. So I wouldn't want to cast dispersions too much, but I think they were capable of more than they managed this weekend from what I saw.
Yeah, it was a tough weekend for Dudley, who dropped 2 places to 6th in the Optegra Championship standings. 4 games played, just a single win and 3 defeats. But looking at them 3 defeats, you have to say that Dudley would have been fortunate to get anything from them anyway. Muscle Warriors and GBG Knights, we all know, seem unstoppable and are almost certain to comprise the top 2 positions at the conclusion of the season. They also lost to Villa Rockets Lions, who have picked up some real momentum, and I've concluded that those who faced Villa Rockets Lions in game week 1 will be thankful they did so, as they are getting better every time they get on the court. It was Dudley's single win of the weekend. Was an emphatic one though. 6-0 over bottom of the table AFC Bournemouth Warriors. Several varied goal scorers, which shows they're not reliant on any one single player to capitalise up top. 2 for Jack Banks, a single for Kean Collins, Jack Gorder, Noah Harvey and Lewis Marshall. I was listening to commentary between Dave Lewis and Nick Woodward, and I think his comment stuck with me, and he remarked that the team maybe just suffers a bit from National League nerves, and they've been playing some really great stuff in training, but that hasn't necessarily translated to competing at the Lee Westwood Sports Centre. So maybe it's more of a psychological challenge that, as opposed to technical or tactical. I think the challenge now is for Dave Lewis and Matt Gilbert as the 2 coaches to work hard in the winter break to ensure that they come game week 3 firing on all cylinders.
Of course, it will have some football with regional leagues carrying on, and of course the John Good Group WFA Cup rounds 1, 2 and 3 being played between now and March. Rounds 1 and 2 of course have been drawn, and round 3 I think is the 15th of February. I might be making it up, but it's around then. That might be the deadline for rounds 1 and 2 to be played. But round 3 will be drawn at February, March time. And so there'll be space and time for those fixtures to take place and provide coaches with the opportunity to test their mettle with their teams ahead of game week 3 of the National League. Right, next up, in 8th in the table, we have Sale United. Played 8, 1-2, drawn 3, lost 3, sitting on 9 points. Goal difference, 0. So their 9 points have come with a plus goal difference of nothing. So they've conceded exactly the same number of goals as they've scored. Did you see much of Sale over the weekend?
I did, and I have to say, anyone that properly watches National League football and has done so for the last few seasons will know that Sale United are a brilliant team. You often say false position as a term that basically explains that their stats and the things that you can see on paper don't necessarily show how good the team is. Defensively, they are so resilient. And for that, I give a lot of credit to player coach Jake Hudson. He's doing an incredible job, having moved over in the summer from Manchester United. Adding further context, as I'm sure we mentioned in our previous Championship podcast, 3 of their main starting 4 players from last season departed in the summer. Thomas Pettigrew to Middlesbrough, Sam Turner to Villa Rockets Lions, and Shannon Smith to Manchester United. So essentially a complete rebuild. The side have had to upskill existing players and promote from within the ranks to fill those voids. So much context needs to be applied. But all of that considered, do you know no team has managed to score more than a single goal against them this season? Which hopefully reiterates my point of that stability and that togetherness. You've said 5 points from a weekend which saw them play Muscle Warriors, Leeds Dynamos, Teesside Steel, and they were the first team to secure a point and score a goal against Muscle Warriors. So they are fantastic.
And just a little thing that I noticed, and our good friend Nick Woodward noticed. And when Nick noticed, he asked me, and I said, well, it's actually the 3rd time I've seen him do it this weekend. Dan Holt seems to have developed the timing for a 720 hit. So as the ball's coming towards him, he does a full spin, missing everything, carries on to a second spin, and as he completes his second spin, is able to whack a ball sideways across the pitch. So Nick said, that can't be deliberate. I said, well, I've seen him do it 3 times now, so I think it might well be. So Dan, if you are listening, let us know. Are you working on your 720, or is it just it happened once and you managed to pull it off, so you thought you'd give it another go?
I'll have to watch that back. But yeah, just delving deeper into Sale United, I've said about Jake Hudson, he reads the game so well, could have easily featured in the team of the weekend. There are several players within the division that don't get the credit they deserve for their ability, for their performances, for their reading of the game. Jake Hudson and Jack Hassan, for me, are the 2 main ones that I want to encourage people to watch, whether that's going back to rewatch the games from the weekend or keeping an eye out for them in the season ahead. But the player I want to spotlight the most is David D. What a weekend. 14 years of age, was voted as the standout player of the weekend. Add to that the fact he was present in team of the weekend for Gameweek 1 of the Championship. This is a player competing well beyond his years, often getting the better of players twice his age. I'd have to go back and look properly, but I believe he is the youngest recipient of the standout player accolade since its introduction during our National League weekends. I think maybe only Jacob Buck-Platt would be in consideration for that particular stat, being a very similar age. But I said it on commentary. He reads the game so brilliantly. He has established this incredibly fluid tactical understanding with Jack Hassan, which will often see them switch positions in the centre. At times, it's almost as if Sale United have 3 central players, which you would assume would come with increased frequency of 2-on-1 infringements, but that just simply isn't the case. They're just so organised as a collective. So the opposition, as shown in the score lines, with no team being able to score more than a single goal against them, the opposition just can't break them down. Like many others, the challenge now is to improve offensively, having only scored 4 goals this season. But in doing so, I can understand, would that jeopardise that defensive stability that they've built their performances upon? Who knows? They face the fairly prolific GBG Knights in their first game of Gameweek 3. So that defence will certainly be tested because they're averaging over 4 goals a game.
Certainly interesting times. All the way down this division, there's good development of players, good development of tactics, and teams that are going to be capable of doing interesting things across the rest of the season. So, good weekend for Sale overall.
Yeah, and just quickly, they gave their debut to Mason Davies on Saturday, who becomes the youngest player competing in the Championship at 12 years of age. So huge congratulations to him. It's also the first time I've watched Joey Levine, who is another exciting player who can strike the ball really cleanly. But for me, they are the team to watch, and I'm really excited to see how they fare in the next few weekends of National League football, as well as the Jonga Group WFA Cup, where they have probably an easier route to the following rounds, having been drawn the winner of the preliminary round between Middlesbrough Reserves and Lancashire Spitfires. So should they come through that unscathed, they will, which there will be the expectation to do so, they will face the winner of Hull and East Yorkshire and Manchester United in round 2. And based on current form, I would have them progress into round 3.
I shall note that one down and see how we get on with your predictions later on. I think we're going to need to do a podcast episode on the Cup, possibly after round 2, and then maybe another one a bit later on. However, let's move on to our 9th place team in the Optegra Championship. It is Nottingham Forest. You mentioned they had a celebrity supporter that lifted their efforts within one of their games. How did they get on the rest of the weekend?
Really well, to put it very short. It was that near miss in the Championship playoff back in July has just seemed to ignite something within the squad. It's honestly as if the team have collectively decided to not come that close to the brink again. What has followed since has been a level of resilience and determination that has just completely transformed their performances, but probably more importantly, their belief within themselves, within the games in which they're competing. Game week 1 and 2 have not just showcased a team fighting to survive, but kind of a squad that's intent on really proving a point and showing others that they deserve a place within the league. Players who previously may have struggled with consistency are now delivering solid performances week after week, most notably Ben Rodgers and Jack Bossenquet, who are just playing some of their best football ever within the National League. And it's just one of those, a classic case of how a singular defining moment, being that narrow win over GBG Saracens in the Championship playoff, has galvanised them, and now they are exceeding expectations.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to note that some of those players you're talking about there are relatively young, and so the combination of tactical awareness in your brain, understanding, and your game understanding needs to be combined with your ability to execute technique, and of course your experience to read the situations clearly and quickly. So the 3 components, if you want, there needed to be successful in the National League. Those younger players have had an extra season. They've had an extra bit of time to develop their technique and their game understanding as well. So just pulling it all together to start putting in some top performances and becoming a bit more resilient and being able to work better as that team unit to try and get some results. And they're doing well.
Yeah, that's an understatement. I mean, you look at the table at face value and you can see that they're 9th with 7 points to their name, which I think is the same as their entire 23-24 season. However, the real story, I think, lies beyond the numbers. The positional players improved. Their pressing is more coordinated. And crucially, their team has chemistry now. I think they believe in one another. They're communicating with one another. And that translates across their performances, across their results. I commentated on 2 of their games across the weekend. Firstly, against Leeds Dynamos alongside Chris Gordon. They were positive and they had many chances to hurt the opposition. Yes, they went on to lose, but it was 1-0. Whereas in seasons gone by, that's a game you're expecting them to lose by a significant margin. And Leeds Dynamos, however, have some of the most technically proficient players in the division, and it took them 32 minutes to break the deadlock. Yes, there are plenty of elements that need to be worked on, the attacking wing play most notably, but I want to emphasise that this is relative to performances not just of last season, but the last 2, 3, 4 seasons. So it's really exciting times. Anyone that gets a second, please find the game between Nottingham Forest and Leeds Dynamos on YouTube. 49 minutes into the stream, which is 20 seconds into the second half, Forest keeper Jack Bosanquet makes the best save you are ever likely to see within Powerchair Football. When you render Chris Gordon, England goalkeeper, 5-time Premiership champion, completely speechless, you know you've done something pretty spectacular. It was amazing, and it just shows that development and that progression. And we've already said they secured a historic win over Manchester United, arguably the best moment of the club's recent history. I don't want to do previous years a disservice, but I know that was only their 3rd win in 5 years. So not a bad game to introduce a club legend such as Stuart Pearce to Powerchair Football.
Certainly wasn't, especially if that level of performance was there as well. So great stuff. Really well done to Forest for that weekend. Now then, we've started up with the first game of the weekend was the Manchester derby. We've talked about one half of that derby, but the second half, or the second part of that derby, is Manchester City Powerchair Football Club sitting in 10th in the Championship. Played 8. Is that 1-2? 1-2, drawn 1, lost 5. Absolutely. 2 wins for Manchester City. So the difficulty of their opening campaign last year has been put behind them. They've bagged that experience and taken it forward. And so 7 points from 8 games is a good enough return if they keep that up for the season to stay out of trouble. Or should be in past seasons gone by. Looking like a much better, more confident, happier side.
So many elements I just referenced around Nottingham Forest showing a clear progression and development from 23-24 can be applied to Manchester City. An incredible weekend for them. They were competitive in every single fixture they contested. At face value, you may look at that 5-0 defeat to GBG Knights and say it contradicts that, but ask Greg Baxter, who was commentating on that game, just how good Manchester City were. He was blown away with what he was watching. And I feel I need to remind people that the squad have an average age of just 16, which is 4 years younger than any other squad competed in the National League, let alone the Championship.
That's an impressive performance from such a young side.
And as you've said, I think this is a team that have taken all of the challenges and the adversity of last season and factored it into their training, their planning, and their performances this season. So it's just so impressive. Again, if you want to watch a defensive masterclass, watch Manchester City versus Villa Rockets Lions on the WFA's YouTube. One of the best performances from an individual player in Jay Pixton, who went on to secure the unsung hero of the weekend. But one for you potentially, Al. If we ever have the ability to track shots on target or saves maybe, I would hazard a guess that Jay Pixton and Sebastian Spink must have made 25 saves across the 40-minute fixture.
Wow.
I said it on commentary that the relentless attack of Villa Rockets Lions would probably not be sustainable for City. And whilst that proved to be the case, it did take until the 39th minute for them to finally find a winner.
That's an incredible game. I'll have to go back and watch that one. In answer to your question, one day, yes, we will be able to. How soon that day arrives, we shall see. But certainly, the tech team with myself and Jack Humphreys and a few others are starting to look at AI tracking and statistical analysis done automatically for us. So we're getting there. Or we're making steps towards it, should we say.
I know we've laid the groundwork to do a tech podcast in the next week or so. So I have no doubt we will dive into topics such as the gathering of stats and who knows where our streams can go, the match data. I know we discuss a lot about the potential plans that are in place, and it is really exciting.
We're not short of ideas. We're not short of places to go and take stuff. It just takes some time. There's a number of issues that are always factors. Certainly the amount of time we get on any testing is one of those. We can't really use the National League as a testing area anymore. People want to watch the live streams and see all the data and the graphics. So any testing we have to do on a separate system and separate systems, whilst at the same time making sure that everything's operating correctly to be able to stream 28 games over a weekend, which is a fairly significant logistical feat to do with all the graphics and the data and the commentators and the stuff that accompanies all of that. And we need to keep that stable and making sure that that's our product that we're putting out whilst developing other new bits and pieces. And then, of course, there's the limits on technology and hardware that we've got and what we can use and what we can't. So there's always a slight financial one. There's a limit on technologies, and then there's also the constraints we have in terms of access to matches and opportunity to do some testing. But we are making big progress in some interesting areas. So looking forward to the tech podcast to talk about that one.
Absolutely. And just before we move on from Manchester City, I want to give a shout out to James Simpson, only 12 years of age, as he did in game week 1 of the Championship, scored the single goal in their sole win of the weekend against Hull and East Yorkshire, which ensures they remain clear of the automatic relegation spots in 11th and 12th. And I think it's clear to see now that there's probably 3 distinct packs in the Championship. You've got the first 2 teams in GBG Knights and Muscle Warriors, and then you've probably got Manchester United, Leeds Dynamos, Teesside Steel, Villa Rockets Lions, and maybe West Bromwich Albion Dudley in the second pack, maybe even Sale United. And then below that, you've got a pack of 4 that will be fighting to claw their way away from the bottom 2 jeopardy spots. So it's just so exciting. But like Forest, City have already matched their entire points tally of 23-24, and they're 2 goals away from their entire goal tally of 23-24. So the development is undeniable.
And you expect them to continue that success and that development over the course of the season, which means it could spell trouble for the 2 teams below them. In 11th, having opened up the season with 2 5-game weekends, so they've played 10 and got 5 points from it, is Hull and East Yorkshire PFC. A bruising fall from the Premiership down. Lots of transitions of players in and out, of ones that are important to them, particularly Cole Simpson, the loss of Cole Simpson. So a tough opening 2 weekends for Hull. There is some light at the end of the tunnel in regards to the positive things we can talk about, because we will get onto Powerchair, where they're heavily featured shortly, but I'm sure they'd rather us be talking about their potential wins and the points on the board. But a tough opening 2 weekends.
Yeah, I don't want to over-analyse Hull and East Yorkshire's weekend. Most can see it was very challenging. Arguably the most challenging in the club's recent history, and I even factor the Premiership into that. 5 defeats from 5 is not great. Pair that with the fact that 3 of their 4 opponents were below them in the standings prior to Gameweek 2 commencing. Whether or not it can be seen as a silver lining or not, they have completed their 2-5 fixture weekends. So game week 3, 4 and 5 will be less congested, which may aid their performances. That being said, they do drop into the relegation zone, having played 2 games more than the teams directly above them and below them in Manchester City and AFC Bournemouth Warriors respectively.
So yeah, just to point out there that the season is made up of 2 5-game weekends and 3 4-game weekends for each team, comprising their 22 fixtures across the season. And obviously they're staggered out, so each team will have those weekends in a different order. And it happens that Hull have opened up with 2 5-game weekends. The impact of that is the 5th game on any weekend. Players are naturally more tired than they are in a 4-game weekend. And so sometimes that 5th game can be physically a challenge. But the flip side is they've also then got less games now to pick up the points that they need as they go forward. So it's a double-edged sword having the 2 5-game weekends up front, and will be interesting as they go forward.
Yeah, one unique talking point about Hull is the fact that they travel with a squad of 9 to Nottingham. I don't know if you were aware, whilst they're only permitted to use 8 players in a matchday squad, Steve Kerrison comprised the 8th member on Saturday, and Joe Kerrison comprised the 8th member of the squad on Sunday. A fairly unique and quirky agreement they've got in that squad.
I think it's a really nice thing that Hull have done there. They organised their squad, had their squad ready for the season, and then they were approached by a couple of players who were short of a team and short of a place to play, and they were honest and open with them and said, look, we can't offer you a guaranteed spot in the squad. And they spoke to everybody involved in the club, and everyone agreed actually having 9 players and will rotate round over a course of a weekend is fair and equitable, and they wanted them on board and wanted them in the squad and in the team to play. So it's come about as a result of good teamwork and people wanting to play with each other, and a level of respect about getting on the pitch in the first place that's come from the squad itself and the coaches. So more power to them for having that approach to team building and developing their squad.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we've already established, there are no easy games in this division. So, game week 3 will be a challenge as well. They face Leeds Dynamos, Manchester United, Villa Rockets Lions, and Teesside Steel, which happen to be the current 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th place teams in the division. Well,
on to our final team to talk about. Propping up the table, sadly for them, in 12th position, having played 8, picked up a win this weekend, and a draw, and lost 6 games at 4 points. Sad to be at the bottom of the table, but AFC Bournemouth winning a draw from the weekend. That's 4 points from 12 is not championship winning form, but they'll be happy with that.
Yeah, much more like the AFC Bournemouth Warriors we're used to. A challenging Saturday, as you've already mentioned. Defeats to Villa, Rockets, Lions and West Bromwich Albion Dudley could have easily dampened spirits. But Sunday, however, completely different, opening with their first win of the season against Hull and East Yorkshire. Chris King registering his 2nd goal of the season. So it's really positive. And I'm told, even though they fell to a defeat to Villa Rockets Lions, Dakota Hannum had a sensational game. So it shows that he's building his confidence playing in the Championship. Ryan Skinner, likewise, He's growing in confidence, which will be a huge boost to the team. He's actually 5th in the leading scorers for active championship players with 62 National League goals. So if he can start to find that sort of form again, I think they can probably claw their way out of the relegation zone.
There's some positive noises being made on social media by a few of them. Certainly, Dakota's performances in goal were noticed by a few, and his move into that position seems to have gone really, really well. And some of the couple of the other players as well saying that they're enjoying their football again for first time in a little while, and that's been a real boom for them. And so, like I say, they're a happier team than they were last weekend by a long way. Picking up points does that for you, but also they seem to be enjoying the football along the way, which is the main thing.
Yeah, and we'll see how they fare in the following game weeks of the season. Game week 3, 5-fixture weekend. Manchester United, GBG Knights, Sale United, Teesside Steel and Manchester City. So when you're looking at that, it's probably only the Manchester City game you'll say they have a real chance of winning. Any further points would surely be seen as a bonus, but as mentioned when discussing Hull, AFC Bournemouth Warriors do have 2 games in hand over the team above them. So if they win, they would jump past them, and they're also joint on points with Nottingham Forest in 9th. So just shows how close it is down there.
Certainly does. Certainly does. Now, I mentioned when we brought up Hull about power hair. Now, this is a growing feature on our podcast, right? I'm a big fan of this. Hair that was noticed over the weekend for its exuberance, its colour, or uniqueness. I've got 5 names written down. Now, 4 of them, I think you'll be able to get no problem. But the 5th was put in by Mr. Nick Woodward as an honourable mention. So, can you name, from your recollection, the 4 that would have been noticed for their colourful hair at the Championship weekend?
Without question, I can name the 4 because 3 of them comprise Hull and East Yorkshire's squad. Aston Walls, top of the list.
What
bright
colour?
Green hair.
There we go, lovely.
Bearing in mind he had bright orange hair for game week 1, so I've now set him the challenge to have 5 varied colours for the 5 game weeks in the 24-25 season. You can add Joel Rothery, the Hull and East Yorkshire goalkeeper, to that list, as well as Joe Kerrison.
Okay, colours for Joel and Joe.
I believe they were shades of blue.
They both had shades of blue, yes.
And then the 4th player on the list probably refers to Hannah Hindley, who I had the pleasure of commentating with on Saturday. So I can say she also has some shades of bluey, greeny turquoise.
Yeah, I think bluey green is probably the fair. It wasn't quite a turquoise, I don't think, but it was a bluey green of some description. So I'll give you 4 out of 4 on that one. Now, the Nick's honourable mention wasn't a colourful hair necessarily, but more of a style. And it's in its particular relationship to Pedro Pascal, star of Gladiator 2. So from the promo videos and promo photographs put out for that movie, can you find the lookalike for Pedro Pascal from Gladiator 2?
Can I find the lookalikes to Pedro Pascal in Gladiator 2?
You've mentioned them as a standout player and someone who has really upped their game this year and is probably nearer the top of the table than anywhere else.
It can only be Jacob Vickers.
Jacob Vickers, indeed. Pedro Jacob Vickers Pascal is now the star for Muscle Warriors. And, I mean, he should be playing for Gladiators, shouldn't he?
You would think so, but I'll have to weave that one into commentary. Jacob Pedro Pascal Vickers.
There it is. Any other lookalikes you've spotted in the Championship over this weekend? Feel free to drop us a line and we'll do some Powerchair lookalikes as well.
Absolutely. Once again, thank you to all that have tuned in to myself and Alex for the 2-on-1 Powerchair Football podcast powered by MK batteries. I have no doubt we will be back in the next week or so with another episode. But until then, thank you all.